Hello friends, it's Astro here and welcome back to another Prison Architect tutorial video where today we're going to talk about cell quality. Now cell quality is a thing that you can turn on or off to your heart's content, but essentially when your prisoners come into the prison, they'll be treated like they'll have an average requirement, so they'll need sort of a level 5 or grade 5 cell or thereabouts. As they misbehave by doing these sort of things, they will be pushed down so that they get a terrible level cell. And as they behave well, so the more days they go without incident, they'll get rights to have a higher grade cell, all the way up to level 10. And the idea behind that is that, well, it'll help your prisoners to behave better because they don't want to be stuck in a tiny little cell like this. And this tiny cell, if we look in logistics here, at room quality, this is a level 0 cell. And if we hover over this, you can see the room grading thingy here. So at least 6 squares gives you a +1. 9 squares, 16 squares, each of those gives you a point. Having an outdoor window, and then having things such as an office desk, shower head, TV, radio, bookshelf, and chair will all help to boost the grading of that cell. So this is the smallest, most basic prison cell that you can get, because recall, a cell requires to be enclosed, obviously, and it needs, oh, thank you, janitor, and it needs a bed and a toilet as its minimum bare bones requirements. So this is as low as we can go. This is the absolute worst that it can possibly be at a level 0. So on that same level, we can actually push a little bit further and we can go, right, well, let's bolt a window in here. So if I then look at logistics now, it's got an outdoor window. That's taken it up to grade 1. If we go across to the next one, I've added in a shower head. In addition to the window, that's taken it to grade 2. If I then also add a chair, which is what's been added in this one, that takes it up to a level 4, right? Because it's got, you know, shower head, window. This one, it's also, it's a 6 square prison. So if we look at all of my options here, I've gone all the way from, so if we go basic cell, and then we just increase it to 6 squares, so it's 2 by 3. Not adding any, so there's no shower head or window or anything in here. If we just push it in that larger direction, it gets a little bit better. Same again when we push it to 9 squares, that takes it up to a 2. So we get 1 point for it being 6 squares and 1 point for it being 9 squares. And then all the way up to a 16 square cell. So this cell, while it doesn't have anything nice, it's still actually considered to be a nicer cell than these ones down south, right? And as we go along, we can add different objects. So we push all the way from the worst possible cell and then adding objects as we go, all the way up to a level 10 cell, a grade 10 cell. So this one has the works. Everything that you could possibly hope for. Bookshelf, chair, a computer so that they can play, you know, their DOS games and, you know, maybe, so, you know, a little bit of Jazz Jackrabbit or something like that. There's a window hanging out over here, and there you go. So that's as good as a cell can possibly get. You cannot go any further. So even if if I grab this section here and stretch it out, right, and we doink that out to there, let's get this set up as a cell. Great. And I'm going to go with, you know what, I'll tell you what, I'll just go with a quick build and a clone, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go, oh yeah, no worries, well, we'll have 2 of each of all of those, and then we're going to have a window as well, so we'll have like lots and lots of windows all the way down here, like this whole section's open, great. But if we go ahead and check the logistics on this, you'll see that the quality is still only a 10. Because 10 is the tippy top of where we can get to. Now, with that in mind, you don't want to just go shoveling straight towards 10, and you don't want to leave all your prisoners in a 0, because at 0, they're going to misbehave. And at 10, well, if all of your cells are at 10, first of all, it's going to be very expensive, because the cost of each of these components, you know, it starts ticking up. But if you don't have a gradient of cells, then your prisoners will, if they're all in level 10 cells, they'll all behave as if they're in level 0 cells. They won't care one way or the other because there's no place for them to go, right? If you just shovel them into there, they are not going to behave themselves because they're not going to go, all right, well, if I misbehave, I'm not going to get sent to a level 0 cell, so what do I care? And they will misbehave. So with that in mind, I've gone ahead and built a couple of cells so that they are as higher grading as they can be whilst being as cheap as they possibly can be, right? So I've looked at the cost of each object versus how many squares it takes up versus, you know, essentially I've calculated the cost per square and what that gives you, because each object gives you 1 point, right? So if I look at cell 0, easy. It's bed and a toilet, it's 3 squares. That's as bad as it can get. And if we look at logistics here, cool, it's 0. If we go up to level 1, we've got an object that gives us a point. In this case, the most efficient and best way to go is a shower head and drain. Because while they technically do take up a square, they can be placed over the top of the toilet, which means that, well, they don't technically take up a square and they only cost $40. In a cell like this, like in the tiny baby cell, if you wanted to bring it up a notch, it'd be very tempting to pop in a window, but a window costs $200. And while it also doesn't use a square, it's $200 versus $40. So it's easy to see that this is the most cost-effective version. And if I tab over to my spreadsheet here, so this guy costs $790. This one, $750, right? Because, well, it's a 3 square prison. Anyway, so $790 is what it's going to run you to get a grade 1 the most efficiently. At level 2, it's actually more efficient. Instead of adding a window or any other objects, well, the window's the only other object that you could add to this, and it'd be $200. So for less than the cost of a window, you can actually just add 3 more squares onto the cell. And I've calculated that using the cost of foundations, which, you know, so if I look at a 3x3 one, $750, take it up, that's $900, right? So that, plus the objects that we've got in there, run us a total of $900 and, well, the objects, the bed and the toilet, I'm discounting the price for because you have to have them. It is a hard requirement. So, yeah, that takes the total of this room to $940 with the additional 3 squares. Up to level 3 now, popping in a bookshelf is the cheapest and easiest way to get you up to a grade 3. The bookshelf itself only costs $30. So, and it does take up a square, but it's $30 that bumps you up to a 3. There you go. Up to level 4, a chair. Chair's fairly easy and fairly attractive. It is also $30, so it makes that the next most efficient object to buy. The cool part about a chair is that prisoners are also going to go and sit in this chair when they've got nothing to do, when they're locked, and when they're in lock-up time. And they're not showering, like there's a lock-up here in this regime, so they would just go and sit in the chair, right, and regain some comfort while they're sitting in it, which is handy, right? You want them to have comfort so that they don't have that need constantly needing to be refilled in other ways. So yeah, there's your level 4, your grade 4. Up to grade 5, again, the most efficient way, instead of putting more objects in, because the objects that we're looking at, you know, if I were to try and do this with a 6 square, I would only be able to do that by adding a window, which is, again, $200. Whereas the jump between a 6 square, so if we look at this, 6 squares is, where are we? 6 is going to be $900. To add another block of squares, it's only $1050 total. So it actually works out more efficient to boost your size up to a 9 square cell. which is pretty nice. So same objects, and we can rearrange them slightly and make it a little bit more appealing, which is nice. So there's your grade 5. Upgrade 6, pop in a radio. Radio's still relatively cheap when you compare it to something like a TV or a window. A radio is $100. Again, as with the chair, the radio provides an added bonus. So in this case, when you add this radio, as the prisoner is in lockup and he's just strolling around in his cell, or she, they'll get a passive recreation boost from listening to the radio. They don't need to sit in front of it and actively watch it because, well, like a television, because it's a radio. So yeah, it provides that passive boost. So they could be sitting here in the chair, raising their comfort, fulfilling their comfort need, but they're also getting a free recreation boost. And the same goes if they're showering, if they're on the toilet, they're still getting that recreation bonus. So that's really, really handy and good to know. Up to level 7, we can shuffle things around and shoehorn in. I mean, it's very tight. I've only got one square available at the face of this cell. And that was kind of a challenge that I set for myself, where I needed to have at least one square that they could walk into, and I'm like RPing this in my head, where this is backed against the wall, that's on the wall, this chair can be tucked into the desk. And, I like to have a little bit of RP going on. So at grade 7, the office desk is the next most effective thing. It does take up two squares, which is why I didn't put it into this guy in lieu of the radio, because I wanted to have a bit more space. But when we get to this level, that's where we start pushing into. Up to level 8, now we can add in the window, right? It's finally to the point where adding this window is going to be cost effective for us. Again, it's, it is a $200 object. So, it's something that you should actually avoid putting in your cells unless you're rolling in it, or unless you're trying to get down to the grade 8, 9, 10 sort of area for your prisoners, right? So this guy here, total cost of this cell is $1,480. So we're starting to push up there. That's starting to be, you don't want to be doing this unless you absolutely have to. Up to level 9, this is where we can grow out to a 9 square cell. And 9 squares, 16, right? So it's 4 by 4. We push out to 16. We have all the same objects as last time. This gets us up to a level 9. And then finally, up to level 10, we can add in the TV. Because the TV is $200. It's the same as the window. So technically, instead of the window here, I could have put in a television. If this were an internally facing cell with no outward facing walls, I could pop a TV in and still achieve a 10 at exactly the same cost. So that's kind of up to you to decide which way you want to go. So that is the gradient of cell qualities that we can build, all the way from terrible and very cheap to wonderful and extremely expensive. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and have a look at a prison that makes use of this. So here's a prison that I prepared earlier. And the way this prison is designed is that we have these horizontal bands here, which contain entirely not enough prison cells, but for the number of prisoners that I currently have. But let's not dive too deeply into that and some of the mistakes that I've made. But the long and the short of it is, we start off down at the bottom here. If we look at the quality of these guys down here, boop, okay. These are all level 2, right? So anyone that's in here should be, 2 or below. And it's a plus or minus 3, I believe, that they'll aim for. So the guys that come in, they'll normally go into level 5, and they'll aim for a mid-band, and as they misbehave, they get shoved down into here. So if I were to track one of these guys down who lives in this area, I don't know, it's probably one of these guys, quite frankly, because these guys are currently in solitary. Oh, well, here we go. How you doing, Mr. Batty? Are you cell quality 2 below average? Okay. Recent misconduct? Found drugs. Okay. He's been in the prison for 1 day. He was immediately found with drugs, probably on his way in, quite frankly. And they went, well, obviously, we're going to shove you down here. So, the guys that are shoved in down here are going to want a better place to live. They're going to want more than just a bed and a shower head, right? They're going to want to move up to the level 4 cells, which have a chair and a bookshelf. A slightly better environment, slightly nicer. The security in this zone is slightly relaxed. I mean, everything else about these zones is all basically the same. They all have a kitchen and common room and everything. They all have a lovely big cleaning cupboard so that we can try and push these guys higher and higher. As they move up and get promoted out of that, they come up to a level 6 cell. So at level 6, we've got our radio. We've moved it out to a 3x3. Up to level 8, we had our office desk and a window. And finally, up to level 10, and, you know, this is the tippy top. At level 10, we've got all of those objects and a big 16. This is, you know, it's maxed out. We've already explored that. So prisoners will be moved up to here, so you can see the number on the right is the grading of the cell. The number on the left is what that prisoner deserves. So if I look and find some of the guys that live in here, obviously not this chap, these guys in here, these guys should all be well-fed, 11 days without incident, 27 days. Oh, these guys, just, love you so much, right? Yes, they have had some misconduct in the past, but recently they have been behaving themselves, what was this guy's name? Fat Boy, all right. Recently, these guys have behaved themselves very well, and as a result, they have access to the lovely shiny cells that are up here. What I then had to do, because of the way that I designed the size of this prison and I had too many people, is I actually then needed to extend a little bit further and get a bunch of level 1 cells up here, right? And these level 1 cells are the, you know, they provide that extra little step down from the level 2s at the bottom, plus there's a whole stack of them. And the reason why they're walled off like this is because there is a little bit of a bug, not a super bug. When people misbehave, they get immediately shoved into the worst possible area, right? So these guys are all like, these guys deserve a level 0. They are the worst culprits in this prison. And if I were to find one of these chaps, like Ian Waterhouse here, he's grading, no, what are we doing? What are we looking for? Right. Cell quality 1 below average. Right. 2 days in the prison, he's already attacked staff and caused some destruction. And he actually has caused that today. So the reason why this is walled off is because I find that sometimes the game will plot people into, and I haven't done the walling really correctly, but it was me just fluffing about. This is a test prison. This is me testing. Because what I wanted to do was quickly flip the block. Because you can select an individual prisoner and say, you know what, Benjamin Gordon, I'm going to put you in a level 10 cell because I want to. I don't want to have to do that. Don't want to have to micromanage that. So what I just do, and maybe if we, hang on, let's have a look down here and see if there's anyone that's out of place. So, no, these guys are all pretty good. Oh, there's a 4 here. So this level 4 guy should actually go up into the 4 zone, right? In the 4 zone, there's no one that's out of place. In the 6 zone, there is a 4 there, but that's near enough, right? But this guy here, oh, he's just been released. Never mind. But yes, what you can do is when you want someone to be flipped to the correct zone, you can just get into deployment here, set their room as staff only, and if we look back at logistics, this level 4 guy has now been ejected. And if I set that back to shared, right, he's no longer in there. Or has he moved to here? Maybe it's that one as well. Let's check that one. Which one was that? Number 4. Okay, cell number 4. Okay, and then we'll set it back to shared. Has he just been moved around again? No, not by the looks of it. No, unless he's there. Anyway, what I was doing up in this block, whenever I needed to do it, and if I were doing this in a real legit prison, I would put these into an actual block so that you can click the block. But because I haven't built this as a block, I was just wiping across the whole lot of them, which then would eject all of those prisoners. The ones that were able to be put into a correct cell would be, they would go into whatever cell quality they needed. The ones that couldn't, that's where you have a holding cell, right? Just to sort of take up the slack. But there you have it. That is how we can build a prison using cell grading as an incentive for people to perform better and behave better. Along with that, in this prison, I'm also doing a whole bunch of programs, right? We're doing workshop safety, and we've got people working in the kitchens. There is absolutely everything to keep these guys under control. There are parole and visitation blobs all the way up and down here that people can get into easily. Over on this side of the prison, we have a massive solitary block, which is, quite frankly, the most hideous place that I can consider being, as a massive deterrent to stop people from misbehaving. And that goes along with our policy. Every single thing in this, like every single incident in this prison, is punished by solitary. I've got a few security changes here, but really that's just to help me keep an eye on the misbehavior ones because they'll be a different color. So like I can see that this guy, Alex Quayle, 1 day without incident, but I know that he's been bad, right? Because he's up to maximum security. If someone murders, they'll go up to supermax. Do we have a murderer in here? I don't believe that we've had any murders recently. No, these guys are all just maximum security, and a couple of mediums. This guy here, he's done something, but it's not a bad thing, right? It's not. I mean, he's got some solitary underway, but found weapons and drugs, right? So Chia Pet here has just been, carrying around contraband, which is bad, but not super bad. So he gets to spend some time in the shoe. He goes to a level 0 cell, and if he behaves himself, he can go further up the chain again, which is nice. So as a result of this and all of the things that we're doing, this prison's actually, I mean, we're not doing well because we've got cheats enabled, but we're not doing well on the cash flow. I'd like to see that positive, but you kind of need to have more bodies in the prison to make that happen. The needs in this prison are pretty good as we track through the day. Like the guys are a bit sleepy at the moment. They want to go to bed. They'll toddle off. Clothing could do with a refresh, but they'll get that in the morning when they wake up. For some reason, literature is just not being taken care of. We have a library. It is fully stocked. We have people working in it, but for some reason, no one is coming to, no one's checking out any books. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I have to look into that. But like I said, this was meant to be a quick experiment, and I ended up playing it for 67 days. So, hey, go figure. So yeah, the needs are very good. And if I look at the quality of this prison, we've got a 9% reoffending rate, which I think is pretty stellar. I'm extremely happy with this. We've released 299 prisoners so far. So yeah, 9%, we're doing pretty well. And if we look at our graphs here, we'll look at our number of incidents, or maybe total incidents. All right, so we did have a few problems around here, but it's not too bad. It's kind of sort of a relatively flat line. The number of incidents per day. So we've had these little spikes. 559 on this day. That was probably a big shakedown, actually. Yeah. And then we look at, so for example, the reform grading in the prison just keeps on ticking up, except it's had a little bit of a dip over the last day, back down to 4.7. And the reoffense rate. Oh, that's odd. 0. All right. Well, I classify that as just a bug in the graphing engine, but that's fine. And we're back to 4.8 again. So that's fine. So we're tracking along quite nicely. Reoffense is just slowly tapering down, and this prison is doing everything that it should do, and I'm very happy with it. So, friends, I hope that this has been a nice little tutorial, just a tinkering around with the mechanics of this game and exploring some of the ways that you can treat your prisoners better, but differently. Yeah? The only thing that I wish that I could do would be to tie security settings to cell grading, or, even better, be able to individually control what a canteen's food quality would be like. So these guys down here, they should have like low quality food. They should have like, everything should be as poor as possible. And then when they boot up to here, then they get cool stuff. But you really can't do that. And there's nothing stopping this guy here from wandering out. I mean, this yard is his closest, but there's nothing stopping him wandering out through this door and up into here and enjoying this yard. So I can't remove the pool tables down here, for example. I can't take the television out of the common room. They're just going to go and use a different one. If they have that need, they're just going to go and get it. So, yeah, no, it's totally fine. But there you go. A nice little experiment in this bizarre little setup. Yeah. Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments below, what you thought of this video. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks, friends. I'll see you soon.